starting right now. Okay, I think we're good
There
to
we
go.
All right, we're good. So, all right, guys. 107% F1 show. Where do we even begin? Because we thought it was chaos last week, and that showed us no. Last week was ordinary. This was advanced chaos.
Well, I think before we dive into any of that, we should first say that this was a hell of a year for both Max and Lewis, and either one winning would have been fine with me. I think Lewis probably deserved to win the race, but I think Max deserved to win the title this year. If it weren't for incidents at Baku, Hungary, maybe you can even count Silverstone. I think Max.
Yeah, definitely.
You and I agreed that Max probably would have had this wrapped up maybe 2 races ago. So I think if it weren't for a lot of luck on Hamilton's side, he would have been out of this race a while ago. But yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way, and before we got into any of this stuff. And I'm not a Verstappen fan or a Hamilton fan by nature. So I don't really have a dog in this fight. Also, we're not professionals, so anything that if anybody's listening to this, anything that you and I say should not be taken as 100% fact.
No, there's none less professional than us. I will to go back to what you were just saying. The thing that I've heard on Twitter, and it annoys me because I think it takes away from both guys, is the Verstappen fans have said, oh, Max won this championship with a car that's been slower all season. And the Hamilton fans say, oh, Lewis won with the car that's been slower all season. And it's just, the cars were evenly matched. I think so. You know, that there were times this, in the last 4 races, the Mercedes has been faster. Yeah. But there was a long stretch earlier this season where the Red Bull was faster and they went back and forth. I mean, that's why if you look at a graph of the points, why it keeps going back and forth, I think it also, saying that, it takes away from the guys who work on the cars, the guys who built those cars, that Mercedes and Red Bull, I mean, just the cars were so close to even all season. Max and Lewis were so close to even all season. There was really no other way that this season could have ended. We thought it would be good. Oh yeah, it's coming down to the last race. That's fitting. And it came down to the last lap of the last race, which was even more than that. So to get to the race, I thought, well, actually, we can even go back to qualifying, where it was really interesting that a lot of teams opted to start on the soft tire because they thought that would give them the faster race. That was not what Red Bull was doing. Max flat spotted one of his tires, so he kind of binned what would have been his race set. So they changed strategies to go onto the soft. And I guess when Lewis got Max on the start and then Max didn't immediately get him back, I was like, oh, okay, so that's pretty much is it then. Because if Lewis is quicker on the mediums than Max is on those softs right now, then what are we even doing here?
Yeah. I just want to jump back into the part about qualifying. Sure. A lot of people have been asking, why did Max even bother going for that second lap on the mediums? And it's because Red Bull didn't think that the lap time was that great. And to their credit, Yuki Tsunoda qualified on the mediums, and I think he only ran 1 lap because the second lap he pitted before he finished it. And he had been up there in P4 on his first run, and I think Max was in P2. And then by the time it was all over, Tsunoda, having only run 1 lap, was still only P8 at the end of Q2. So that explains why they even bothered going for that second lap on mediums. Fair. Just to be sure, because I think Horner had said that wasn't quite as close to the time that they were expecting on the mediums. So if anybody is wondering why they even bothered going for that second lap, it was just because the times were close and they knew that other teams were going to be jumping on the softs. So there was a slight risk that Max wouldn't have made it through, and that's why they went for the second run that ultimately ended in him flat spotting that front left tire. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That makes sense. If it was closer than it appeared to be, and also we're definitely have to talk about Mr. Yuki Tsunoda, but later in the show, because he had a really great weekend.
Good weekend,
for Yuki Tsunoda, which is nice to see. So kind of not necessarily an uneventful race, but I don't know. It seemed like it was going to be kind of anticlimactic, where Lewis pulled a little bit of a gap, and then Max came into the pits and Lewis came into the pits, and nothing much happened until Lewis came to that absolute hero, Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
Who gotta be probably, aside from the last lap, really the most exciting thing that's happened in a while was Checo held up Lewis by 7 seconds.
Yeah.
in a lap and a half, which is crazy.
I know some people might say, what does that matter? But that 6-7 seconds was the reason why he could not pit with assurance during the Giovinazzi VSC later on in the race. And I know I sent you a message saying Hamilton probably should have pitted then, but the reason why he couldn't without 100% assurance was because Perez had held him up for those 7 seconds. So I know it didn't seem like a much time that he held Hamilton up for, and ultimately Verstappen couldn't get past him anyway. But towards the end of the race, this was a huge part as to why Verstappen and Red Bull were able to do what they did.
For sure, it was a big 7 seconds, and also we didn't know at the time that that once they cleared Checo, that Max, or that Lewis would once again just drive right away from Max.
Yeah.
I didn't like, Lewis got on the radio and he said Checo is driving dangerously. And I'm like, come on, dude. Just I didn't think so. I thought that everything that Checo did was within the limits of the car.
Not even close to being over the edge.
There was nothing. To me, that seemed whiny from Lewis.
It did.
And unfortunately for him, Valtteri was not in a position to play spoiler in the way that Checo did. And
no, not even close.
Lewis, everybody there knows Checo Perez is not, if you had to choose a guy that's like, you absolutely have to get past one guy, Checo would probably be the last guy you would pick. Mm-hmm. It's just, he's always going to have his elbows out. He's a veteran. He's so good at wheel-to-wheel racing.
He's very clean. Yeah.
He's very clean. I thought he gave Lewis a ton of room, and there was just, at one point Lewis thought that he had the move made, and he thought he was passed, and Checo disagreed, and he threw it right back down the inside. Didn't force Lewis off the track or anything like that.
No.
I thought that was such a good job by Sergio Perez. It was, when obviously Kimi Räikkönen was voted driver of the race. But if it wasn't him, I thought it should have been Checo, because that was, the way he defended Lewis there was, it was like Fernando Alonso defending against Lewis, for Ocon earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think for the entirety of the race, what Perez did probably wasn't super amazing, but considering the circumstances that they were racing in today, and what was at stake, what Perez did, not only helping Max, but sacrificing his own race in the process. Mm-hmm. I think, you're right. I think Perez probably should have won driver of the day if today wasn't Raikkonen's last race. You could probably argue Sainz did pretty well too, but
Sainz had a really good day.
He didn't have much on the line in today's race.
No, but if they didn't have to retire Checo at the end of the race, he would have also been on the podium.
Yeah.
So
right.
Sainz had a really good race. So he was on the podium because they had to retire Checo's car. So
yeah. Did you hear what for? I didn't read up on any of that.
I don't know. For them to, last race of the season. So I don't know. It had to have been something really fatal with the car where it wasn't going to last more than another lap or two. But honestly, I have no idea. Because what are you gonna do if it's Max and the engine starts vibrating? It's like, well, I'm not gonna retire it. I'm gonna drive it until it blows up.
Yeah, I think what they didn't want was for Checo to stop somewhere on track that would prolong the safety car even more. So
that might have actually, wouldn't surprise me if that was it entirely.
So
Just as a precaution.
Right. Because like you said, it's last race of the year. Why not just drive it until it breaks or burns down or something like that? But
yeah, because you don't want to leave camshafts down the backstretch. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, marshals were already busy cleaning up one mess. It probably would have taken them another lap or two just to get to where Checo was, and then some more laps to clean it up. Because I think he left during the safety car, right?
It was still during the safety car because he had pitted for the soft tire right after Max did, and then just next time around he ended up coming in.
So I guarantee that. I guarantee that's what it is. He probably could have kept going, but they probably didn't want to risk him dying on the DRS.
Yeah, and at that point, his job was done. At that point, he had already helped out all that he could.
Yeah, and they weren't going to win the constructors championship no matter what, even if he did finish in P3.
So what we ended up getting was really what we didn't want, which is it was kind of the FIA show again this week. Right from the start, when Max, threw the car down to the down the inside of Lewis, and Lewis went off, straight lined, off into the runoff area and ended up almost 2 seconds out ahead of Max. And they didn't have him give back the position. They also didn't even, at the time I thought it was odd, they didn't even investigate it.
Yeah.
Where it looked very similar to what had happened last week when they made Max give the spot back and gave him a 5-second penalty for it. So at that point, it was like, all right, well, that sucks that happened. They ended up, at that point, if they would have had Lewis give the position back, Lewis would have been back by Max in probably 2 or 3 laps.
I think so.
So that one was fine. But we get towards the end of the race. So it was 6 laps to go. And, a guy that we're a big fan of around here, Nicholas Latifi.
The GOAT.
Binned it. And we get the safety car and just a weird sequence of events.
Yeah.
So I'll set it up. So you got Hamilton was right by the pits when the safety car came out. They could have pitted him, but they didn't. So Hamilton passes by the pits. At that point, Max comes in, takes on soft tires, and goes back out. But there's still 5 cars in between. So we end up getting this weird thing where they wave those cars through, and then part of a lap later, they restart the race.
Yeah.
I don't know how,
the last lap, no less.
Yeah. So what did you think about the way that was handled by the FIA? What happened, and what might have been a better thing for them to do, if anything?
I'm putting myself in Michael Massey's head right now.
Poor Michael Massey. I mean,
look,
the whole last month, he's just the least popular man on earth.
That is not an easy job. And I think before him was Charlie Whiting, right? He was the
job basically killed him.
But he had help. He wasn't always by himself making these decisions. I think he had somebody, I can't remember who it was, but he had somebody with him that helped him with these calls. In hindsight, looking back at it, they probably should have red flagged the race, I think. But we have the benefit of hindsight, it being 5 hours after the race now. I think what lap did it happen in? Lap 53?
53, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. I think that probably would have been the right thing to do because one, Verstappen's going to get brought right back up behind Hamilton anyway. But at the very least, now you're not waiting until the last second to make a decision. You have all of that red flag time, that stoppage time to make any decisions that might affect the race. I feel like they just rushed their decision because they weren't going to let the cars pass until literally that last lap 57. And then halfway through, they decided we're going to let the lapped cars go. And also we're going to let the race restart at the end of this lap, halfway through sector 2. And in trying to let them decide the finish on track, they ended up deciding the finish in the steward's room, which, I mean, look, they haven't had a good couple of races or even a good year with the stewards and Michael Massey. And I feel like this just made things worse. Not taking anything away from Max Verstappen. He still drove a hell of a season, and I think he deserved to win the Drivers' Championship this year, but he probably could have done so without all this baggage. But yeah,
So-
to answer your question, I think they
Yeah.
should have red flagged the race. Let everybody start fresh. Let the lapped cars unlap themselves, and then let everybody fight for their position, because it wasn't unfair to Ricardo, who was stuck behind Verstappen. He watched everybody else get to unlap themselves,
Right.
and then he has to sit there
Yeah.
and wait until the start of the restart of the race. So, but again,
Yeah.
I know that wasn't a big point in this weekend's race, but yeah, if you want to be fair, red flag the race, let everybody catch up, and let everybody have a fair fight in finishing those last couple of laps. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, that seemed to be, the thing that they could have done that would have evened it up, because then everybody would come in. Everybody would have came in, they
Yeah.
would have changed tires. Everybody would have went back out on the softs, I think, with 5 or so laps to
Yeah,
go.
oh, definitely, yeah.
And then it's all right. Lewis and Max have, say, 3 laps,
Yeah.
possibly with a standing start, to decide it. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, I think that would have been okay with the majority of F1
I think
fans.
everybody, because at that point, Red Bull, they always said, well, it would have been better if we had the safety car, because then we would have this advantage. But I don't think anybody could have really argued with red flagging the race for that reason.
Mhm.
What complicates it, I suppose, for Mercedes was when the VSC came out for Giovinazzi. Toto was over there begging Michael Massey not to use the safety car.
Mhm.
And then then the safety car comes out. He's like, no, we have to stay under the safety car, because before you're under the VSC. He's like, Michael, we're racing. And then Michael Massey's trying to get them back to racing, and Toto's no.
Yeah.
Which again, I can't blame Toto or Mercedes or anybody for feeling the way they did about anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's motorsports, it's auto racing. Not every situation is always 100% fair. Hey,
Yeah.
Cat.
Benjamin.
There's just sometimes that's what happens, is you're hard done by something doesn't go your favor. That's racing, so at that point, the safety car comes out. I'm convinced that Red Bull was going to do the opposite of whatever Mercedes did.
Yeah.
To my mind, Mercedes could not, when the safety car came out, they could not bring Lewis Hamilton into the pits and change onto different tires, because then Red Bull would not pit. And then if the safety car stays out, then all right, you've just given away the championship by doing a pit stop that you didn't need to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they had any other choice in that situation. I think they had to stay out, knowing Red Bull would simply do the opposite, take the track position. And given that it was behind the safety car at the time, Hamilton might have came out behind Max and Checo. I don't know what the gap was at that time, but yeah, I mean, probably not, because it would have been 17 seconds. So
I think Checo was very far behind at that point.
Yeah, he might have been. Because he had pitted. So it would have just been behind Max, and then possibly behind lapped
a couple
cars.
Yeah, maybe like 2.
So, right. So I don't think that was something that they could have done.
I think they could have pitted behind the Giovinazzi VSC. They would have lost position to Max, but they would have had much fresher tires.
And Max probably would have done the same thing at that point. He probably would have stayed out, taken the track position and the tires.
And at the time, Hamilton was faster, so he probably would have passed him anyway. I think Merck really dropped the ball there.
And I don't know what Mercedes had for medium tires at that point, because at that point, maybe they could have gone to mediums for the rest of the race.
They didn't have any more new tires. I think that's what.
No, I believe that the only one with, and I don't think it was a new set. It might have had like 1 lap on it, was the set of hards that Max put on. That was a new set. I don't think that Lewis had another new set. I could be mistaken.
Well, Max did have a new set because they didn't even practice on hard tires. So
No.
yeah, Max definitely had another new set of hard tires, and Hamilton only had used tires at that point. But it still would have been better than a pair of hard tires that had like 30 laps on it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then we get Max comes out on a set of soft tires that had, I think, maybe 3 laps on them or something like that. And we get the 1 lap shootout, which ended pretty much, I think, the way that most people assumed that the 1 lap shootout was good. But I mean, kudos to Lewis. I mean, he gave it everything on that lap.
Yeah. Not much you can do there with 40 lap old hard compound tires against brand new softs.
But I mean, that was again the most he could have possibly done. I'm surprised that I'm not surprised that Max threw it in going into turn 1 with basically the exact same move as the start of the race with kind of the lunge, because on the soft tires against those old hard tires you could do that. But I'm also like, well, he could have just followed him in and then picked his spot. But you know what? There's none of that.
I'm surprised Hamilton I'm surprised Hamilton just didn't defend the inside and push Max out wide like Max had been doing to him the last couple of races.
He left it open, and I mean, you have to assume that Max is going to make that move. And
right.
He literally made that move an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I really don't know what Lewis was thinking there. If you leave him the inside, he's gonna overtake you. Why not just sit there, park the car right on,
make him go the long way.
Make him earn it.
That's Lewis did that a bunch. He did that on the restart last week with Ocon. Was he just he left Max that space on the inside, and Max fearless. He threw it down there. He didn't care. At that point, if there's contact, that suits Max just fine.
Right.
But there wasn't. It was, and I did notice on that last one, Max made no attempt to push Lewis wide. He took that car. He really did. He pulled it as far inside as I thought that he could. There was almost a car width between Max and the outside curbs when they came around, so there was no reason for Lewis to, go straight into the runoff, which was the right thing for Lewis to do at the beginning of the race, because otherwise there would have been contact. So, and then Lewis tries to come back a couple times, gets up next to him, but just with the soft tires, there's really just nothing he could do. Hi again, Cat. I'll say, if people are listening to this instead of watching it, Bernie's cat is walking across his desk. So Max ends up winning. Did you hear the radio right after the race?
Who's
Max
radio?
To Alex Albon actually got
what did he say?
He was just like screaming.
Oh, really?
It was like before Max even crossed the line. He was like, "Oh my God, Max!" It was. As an Albon fan, you have to look it up. It's great.
That was Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he called him. He was just basically just screaming on the radio, which was great.
Okay.
And then, so the post race, I thought was kind of appropriately, Lewis took his time and did not park his car next to the number 3 marker. Ended up just taking it straight back to the pits, which I kind of figured he was going to do.
Yeah. Kudos to him though. They were him and his dad were really professional at the end of the race with everything. They went over and congratulated the Red Bull guys, congratulated Max. I think they even
and Yost.
Yost as well. At that point, Lewis knows there's nothing he can do right now. The only recourse they have is really just appeal it with the FIA and then maybe bring it to court. Like I'm pretty sure they're planning on doing.
It sounds like that's what they're doing.
The court of Autosports, or the CAS, whatever that stands for. So I think as of right now, Verstappen is officially the winner.
Yes.
I know that they have appealed and their appeals have been denied so far, directly with the FIA anyway, but they can, and they are going to go to a higher power there. But I don't know. Like I said, I think Max deserved the championship this year anyway, even if Lewis did deserve the win today. I can't see any appeals going through successfully right now. I think that would just look bad for everybody, uh, for Formula One especially. To have this on their record, that their race director screwed up this badly. I don't know if they would officially admit that they did anything wrong, even if they technically haven't officially done anything wrong. Because I think you said one of the regulations states the racing director is allowed to make changes to the races as he sees fit.
It's basically in a situation where maybe there's articles in the thing that contradict each other. It basically says that the race director has the final makes the final decision of how it's going to work.
Right.
I'm trying to say, okay, yeah. So I actually have that in front of me.
Okay. Yeah.
So Mercedes had two separate they had two separate protests. The first one, they said that Max passed Lewis under the safety car, and that was pretty quickly denied by the FIA.
Yeah. This happens all the time. So
literally all the time.
While
they were accelerating and braking, he was briefly ahead, but at the actual safety car timing line, he was not.
Yeah.
So that one's gone.
Yeah.
The other one basically relates to, what Mercedes was mad about was about the lapped cars being allowed past and how the race restarts. So what it says is that any lapped cars can be allowed to pass, which Mercedes interpreted as all lapped cars, but Red Bull's argument was, number one, any does not mean all. So any lapped cars that you want to let pass can pass. The thing was that there was no message that was relayed to the teams. There is a standard message for that, which I believe says something like, all lapped cars now allowed to pass or whatever. That message was never flashed to the teams. What they got was the one saying that the cars that would be eventually allowed to pass, I think it was, who would it be? Norris and
Sainz.
Those five cars, Alonso maybe, or
Tsunoda, Gasly, and Bottas.
Okay, that they were allowed to pass because they did it that way and not with the standard message. Then basically that part of the rules does not apply.
Yeah.
Then the other one, it says Article 15.3 gives the race director, quote, overriding authority over, quote, the use of the safety car. So it's up to Michael Massey. They say, the safety car will come in the next lap. But if Michael Massey wants to say, no, we're going to let those cars go by, gain some space, and then bring the safety car in at the end of this lap, that Michael Massey, the race director, can do so.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care for that, but I get it.
I mean, it is kind of a gray area there, because then one could argue, what's the point of having regulations if the race director can just decide to change the regulations whenever he sees fit. But I mean, right. I understand this is a specific event meant to make the fight between the two championship drivers a little more equal. Right. I don't know. I feel like Massey have been making these decisions to make up for past mistakes.
There's been some makeup calls, which is a very NBA kind of thing, and I hate it there, and I don't like it here either. I think it's just going to lead to, 'cause there's a lot of rules that have been broken by a lot of people in the last couple of races, where the issue that I have is with the rule, not necessarily with what they did.
Yeah.
So, like Max, being forced to give the position back last week, or, the one where Max was on the outside, Lewis is on the inside, Lewis kind of straight lines turn one, Max goes off, then Max ends up having to give the position back. Well, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, Lewis won the first turn, not the second one.
Yeah.
And that was the one that he pushed Max out of. So to me, there has to be some rewording of the rules, specifically for overtakes. And because honestly, who would have thought that a world championship would be decided by the wording of the safety car rules? Nobody.
Yeah. No.
So I can only blame the FIA so much.
Yeah.
I think it was a mess the last couple of weeks. The inconsistency with which they've ruled on things. It's just that's all I want is just be consistent. Ultimately, I want things called the same in the last race of the season as they are in the second race of the season and the 8th race of the season.
Yeah.
And I realize that weird shit happens that you can't really plan for. Because again, who would have thought, it's specifically the wording of the ruling of the safety car is what's going to determine who's the world champion this season. Nobody wants that.
No.
It was decided on track. It's unfortunate that it was decided on track with one of the drivers having a pretty good size advantage over the other one. But again, that's motorsports. That's the way that it works. You don't always get that 100% perfectly level playing field. Yeah. That's why it's not a spec chassis and a spec powertrain series.
No, you just don't want those moments being manufactured in the steward's room. And I think
you want it to be because somebody on the track did a better job.
Yeah, or made a risky move or took the risky strategy and it paid off at the end or something like that. Right. I know that when this happened, when that turn one incident happened, I mentioned the move that Tsunoda made on, I think it was Stroll at Brazil. Mm-hmm. Tsunoda was on softer tires, kind of came in from a little bit far back, but ultimately made a clean move. And then Stroll turned in on him, and then Tsunoda got penalized for that. And then in this case, he got a 5-second penalty. And in this case, there wasn't even an investigation.
That was really that was the issue. Was, to me, if they investigate it and then they say, where Lewis ends up pulling away, I'm like, maybe he did or didn't gain a lasting advantage, because like I said, if he would have had to give the spot back to Max, I think he would have been past him. Lewis was quick enough.
Yeah. Although we did see Perez defend pretty well too.
Yeah, that is true.
So Verstappen, could have stayed in front of Hamilton, maybe wore his tires down, and then eventually when they did pit, Verstappen would have been, on an advantage again. But we didn't even get a chance to see that because they didn't even bother to look at it for longer than a half a lap.
Which is, so the lack of investigation was crazy to me at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't like that the rules seem to penalize aggression in that way, in that you can send it down the inside and keep it under control. Like, I mean, look at the pass that Max made on the last lap of the race. All right. That was a lunge. That was from a long ways back.
Yeah.
And you could argue that in that case, Lewis could have turned in, and if he hit Max, it might have been Max's fault because Lewis was ahead. But all right, well, if you're going to say that, then just the guy ahead should just turn into him every single time.
Yeah.
Because, because what the guy making the lunge is going to have to back out every single time, or if it's the other way, you're trying to go around the outside and you don't get your tires quite ahead, so the guy on the inside can just like straight line it because it's his corner. No, it's dumb. It doesn't work. If Max way overcooked it, like what was it a couple weeks ago, the one that there was no chance that he was actually going to make the turn. They both went off and Max ended up having to give the spot back.
That wasn't no, that wasn't Brazil, was it? I think it might have been Saudi Arabia.
It might have been Brazil, actually. Yeah. No, because I'm not thinking of Saudi. I'm thinking of Brazil.
Yeah, and he didn't have to give the position back though. I think.
Oh, he didn't end up having to give it back on that?
No, they let him keep racing. They didn't penalize him for that.
Okay, so that one was one that on the rules he probably should have had to give it back.
Probably, yeah, he should have.
But that one, I also thought that there was really no chance that he was making that.
No.
If like the turn one in this race was Max kept it on the track in between the white lines. Max did not run off, which says that was a good move. He was able to keep the car on the track.
He was ahead at the apex too. So.
Yeah, he was ahead at the apex. So I don't know exactly how you have to word it, but I think they need to say more in there.
Yeah.
Because just you don't want to get into a spot where like, okay, the only way that you can really pass guys is if you're faster on the straight. Because that's terrible. I think that, your Danny Ricardo, last of the late breakers, those guys have to be able to send it down the inside, down the outside, and make these moves. Because, if we don't have that kind of passing, then why are we watching Formula One?
Especially in these cars where you need to make those moves to pass. Because even with DRS and with engine mode turned up, it's still super difficult to get past cars.
You have to be a lot faster than another guy, unless you can pull out a surprise move, something like that, where you just, you send the crap out of it and outbrake a guy. And then, you have to be a little bit aggressive. You have to be a little bit rude there and put your car somewhere that it's not necessarily supposed to be.
Yeah.
It can't always be, this guy got, he got his front tires 3 inches ahead of yours, so you have to totally back out and give him the position. The hell's that?
That's not racing anymore.
No, it's not. And that was the issue that I had with, with Lewis talking about Checo today, and so, that's dangerous driving. It's not dangerous driving.
Yeah, it's not even
elbows
close.
out. It's aggressive, but it was all under control.
Yeah,
it was. I thought that was a great job by Checo. I thought Lewis was a little bit whiny at that point. But I get it.
I think
he was frustrated.
I think he's also doing whatever he can to, I guess, kind of getting them in the head of the stewards.
Right. Yeah, they all do a lot of lobbying.
Yeah. I think that was just gamesmanship right there. Although, he did come across as whiny, and I think Toto Wolff coming on and begging for no safety car when there was a wreck is another reason why
it just looks bad.
It's another reason why I don't think the team principals should be talking to Massey while he's making those decisions, or the stewards while they're making those decisions. Let them just make the call, and then you can argue it later. But I don't think they should have, even if it's not blatantly influential on making any calls, just any little bit of influence like that while they're trying to work out if they should throw out a safety car or something like that. I don't think the team principals should have that ability to talk to guys in the stewards room while they're making those decisions.
It would be interesting to know how much Michael Massey in his heart is affected by that stuff, because I think if I were Michael Massey, I would mostly be annoyed by it.
I think I would be too, but he is human. So
just, if you're an NFL ref, and there's a head coach coming over complaining to you every single time about everything, you're like, I'd go the opposite way. Like, no, man, screw this guy.
But I mean, that's what coaches do. Even if they know that their players are in the wrong, they're going to argue, because if they don't argue, then the rest are going to just start making calls against them for every little thing, knowing, no, this guy's not going to come and argue in my face about it anyway. So, I'm just going to give him the penalty.
It's also a bit, and I know I've said this about Christian Horner specifically before, but Toto does the same thing, where they put it on themselves. To me, it takes pressure off of the team, takes pressure off of your drivers, takes just the general, like on Twitter today, nobody's really annoyed at Max for the win. Even the Hamilton fans really aren't. They are pissed at Christian Horner. Man, they hate Christian Horner.
Horner didn't do anything.
Horner is I love Christian Horner. I think he's good for the sport.
Yeah.
He's a personality, and that's actually what F1 has done such a good job of in the last 4 or 5 years, is cultivating the personalities of the sport. Basketball does a really good job of it, because you don't have all that many. I think it also helps that there's not many teams, not many drivers.
Yeah.
So you can, you get to know people like Toto and Christian Horner and Otmar and, the drivers, the team principals, even guys like Bono,
it's not a coincidence that Drive to Survive focused on Ricardo for their first episode ever,
Right. Yeah, they get people into it.
Yeah. They know who's going to draw in the crowd. So
it's, I don't know. I'm annoyed that I shouldn't say I'm annoyed the way it ended, because the last lap was thrilling. My heart was beating out of my chest, right? It was exciting. I'm annoyed that it came down to a lot of FIA stuff, that there was appeals, that any of that stuff even had to happen. I'm glad that Max ended up winning, because I did think that I thought Max deserved to win the championship. I think if Lewis won it, it would have felt a little bit like, I don't want to say that he stole it, because Lewis
gifted it.
Yeah, that Lewis would have won a championship in a season that you could argue that, Red Bull probably had the better car more often than Mercedes did.
Yeah.
Lewis did a better job. I'll tell you what Lewis did. Lewis did a better job than Max at absolutely maximizing the number of points that he could have gotten during the season.
Yeah.
Lewis left very, very little on the table. Max left quite a lot on the table.
Yeah. Sometimes it was out of Max's hands. But when it wasn't, he did leave some points off the table on his own. I will agree with you on that. And even though Bottas finished ahead of Perez, I think Perez did much more to help his team this year than Valtteri did.
He did more big stuff. There weren't really, I can't think of a time where Checo was really had to do something and just totally whiffed on it.
Yeah.
Where there, there was Max starting third behind both Mercedes, and Valtteri basically leaving the door open and letting him go by, and Valtteri having to defend, and Max just making really quick work of him and just going right past him.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, when Max needed Perez to step up, Perez stepped up, and almost every time he needed Perez to step up, he did. And then when Lewis needed Bottas to have a good qualifying, or just to stick close enough during a race to be a threat to Red Bull strategy, Bottas wavered. Yeah. Like you said, he just let Max ride on by and waved goodbye to him as he was driving on by. And then poor starts where he did start in the top 5, but then dropped down to like P9 before turn 1.
That was today.
Yeah. Yuki got by him, and then AlphaTauri. And then it took him a while to get back in front of Yuki.
I think it was, and I don't even think it was on the track. I think it was pit strategy.
It was
because Yuki.
Yeah, he pitted during the VSC. You need more than that from a second driver at Mercedes. And I can't believe it took them this long to get George Russell up there, honestly. I thought after last year, George Russell would have been in a Mercedes this year, but
God, that would have been interesting if George Russell was in that car this year.
I think Mercedes would have finished with the Drivers' Championship and a Constructors' Championship.
Because I think it's shocking to me that McLaren was the only team to put together a 1-2 lockout of the podium this entire season.
Yeah.
Red Bull never did it.
Luck.
And Mercedes never did it, because the 2 top drivers, I think, were so far ahead of the second 2 drivers.
Yeah. I mean, even today, they were like 20 seconds ahead of, or 20 seconds ahead of Perez. But
it's crazy how much faster Lewis and Max are than their teammates. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I don't think Lewis is going to be able to do that with George Russell.
No.
George Russell is very fast.
Yeah, I think Russell will be a lot closer, if not beating Hamilton on a regular basis.
Yeah, maybe not the first season, but
yeah,
I say that he
came in
in the first race.
Yeah, he wiped the floor with Valtteri in the first race, and if it wasn't for the tire issue, he would have won. He would have been on the top of that podium.
See, you have to be on Twitter, because did you see George Russell on Twitter?
No. What did he say?
With the because with the safety car at the end of the race, of course, Russell, his car had already been retired by that.
Yeah.
With the safety car at the end, he was tweeting all caps, "This is unacceptable," a bunch of exclamation points, and then after Max won, he basically said, "Look, Max is great, all this stuff, but basically that Lewis got robbed by the safety car."
I mean, he's a Mercedes man. Well,
that's what I said. I'm like, George is out there scoring Toto points before he even shows up in Brackley.
Yeah.
So I can't blame George for that. all the there's a lot of, I know, again, I'm perennially online on Twitter, and you know, so there's a lot of Mercedes people there. Oh, you know, Lewis got hosed and Max didn't deserve it. I'm like, look, if this was exactly flipped 180 degrees, you guys would be celebrating just like the Max Verstappen fans are celebrating right now.
Yeah.
And the Max Verstappen fans would be livid, you know, if it was the other way around. It just, that's what happens. That is sports.
Yeah. And also to those guys, if you really think that Hamilton and Verstappen really care if you guys are happy or angry, they're going to be celebrating. Yeah, they're going to be celebrating Christmas in their $1 million home with their beautiful girlfriends anyway, man. Like, you can be upset, but don't take it so personally, you know?
I say, wish it was just $1 million home. Hamilton just sold his Hamilton sold his home in New York for $49.5 million.
Jesus.
He never lived in it. Never once.
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, I mean, it's just, look, I know everybody has their favorites and everybody gets emotional at the end of the race, but don't let this, you know, don't let this ruin your year, you know, like,
no.
Hamilton still has 7 championships on his resume.
Mm-hmm.
And Verstappen will probably get a whole bunch more, you know. Like I said, I am glad that Verstappen won today. If you were the FIA, how would you fix this?
I think,
like, it's just right now, as of right now,
it's gonna have to be a going forward thing. I think if I'm the FIA, I have to acknowledge that there have been, I might not say failings if I'm them, but I would certainly say inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And the FIA, above all else, the teams have to believe that the FIA is impartial and that the FIA is doing things fairly for everybody consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the FIA is going to have to say something where they basically say, look, at every situation, we do the best that we can. We're human. Mm-hmm. You know, there is a rule book. But it's not always as black and white as people think it is. So we have to take a look at the rules, and either with the rules, you either have to tighten them or open them. You know, it's got to be one or the other. Where do you want more open rules that we, you know, say, okay, well, every situation is different, or do you want to tighten everything down and just have everything be hard and fast to where if you wanted to do that, then Lewis should have had a 10-place grid penalty for the race today because he impeded Nikita Mazepin in practice.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same way that he did last week at Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Now, mitigating circumstances, we know it's not as big of a deal at this track as it was at Saudi Arabia because the turns aren't blind and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if you were going hard and fast by the rules, that should have been a reprimand. And if he got another reprimand, he would have had a 10-place grid penalty. Yeah. Is that what you want? I don't think it is. Mm-hmm. So I think that you want to leave some wiggle room in those rules, but there are certain rules that they're going to have to either open up to where say, look, this is what we mean by this. This is what we mean by that, you know. But there's always going to be a human interpretation of those rules based on the situation. I think the FIA, above everything else, they need to not necessarily say that they effed up or that they messed up or anything like that. Just say, we understand that people don't think that we did our best. We did. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue to work to be better at it than we were this past season.
Is there anything you would do in the short term to appease Mercedes? Who
not really, because
I do have legitimate gripes. They do have a legitimate gripe.
I can't imagine why you would, because, you know, for Mercedes, it's just, all right, you know what? You shouldn't have let it come down to the last race of the season. You should have figured out your car quicker. You should have done things differently. You can only complain so much about effectively the referees when you've put yourself in this situation where you're going to the last race of the season level on points. And, if you were up by even 10 points right now, then your fate is, you control your own fate. You only have to finish second.
There was some talk on Red Bull offering Mercedes financial restitution to drop their appeals.
Really?
What do you think about that? Because I assume this is all about how much money they would get from finishing first in the drivers or constructors.
Well, no, because there's no money. There's no money on the drivers' championship.
Oh, is there?
No, the money is on the constructors' championship.
I thought the drivers got
it. The drivers might get paid something, but the teams get paid on the constructors' championship.
Okay, so then there's no.
And that's what Horner said after the race, is he thought that it was probably appropriate that Red Bull won the drivers' championship and Mercedes won the constructors' championship. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, if it was 1985, nobody would have cared about it. Not that nobody would care about the result of the drivers' championship, but the constructors' championship for the teams was the bigger deal.
Yeah, that's where the money comes from.
Not all that long ago. So that was the team's concern, was winning the constructors championship. And if one of your drivers won the drivers championship, well, that's nice for him.
Yeah. Well, I think that because back then there were more like personally owned teams that weren't raking in billions of dollars from car sales.
I mean, how much money are you going to give to Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah.
They don't need it. It's, for them, they're trying to keep Lewis Hamilton happy and
then
all that stuff. I don't know.
There was also talk about sharing the championship, which I was not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I was not for. This is a competition, man.
If you have two champions, you have zero champions.
Right.
That would be the cowardly thing to do. I would hate it. I actually meant to. If the appeals hadn't already been dismissed, mm-hmm. I was going to say that to you, but like, there is a result here where we don't do the show next season because I would be out on that. And that would be if they said, okay, dual champions. Like, no. And I don't know if maybe that's just like that I'm American, so I don't like ties.
I don't like ties either.
That's why I don't watch soccer and why I'm confused every time an F1 a football game ends in a tie. I'm like, what the hell? Un-American garbage is this? There is a winner and there is a loser. You know.
Or winners by aggregate,
right?
Like, who cares? Like you scored more away goals. What?
You don't want to it's just like you didn't want to come down today to the fact that Max had won more races over the season. I want the winner to be the guy who scores more points. That's what makes sense to me. So I'm glad that that's not a thing that's happening. That would have been a cowardly thing to do. I would not have been okay with that.
No, I agree with you that I think the damage has already been done to this season.
At that point, you're not gonna change it back and have everybody feel good about it.
If you, even with the appeals now, if you penalize Verstappen, I don't think that's fair. He didn't do anything wrong.
No,
and then
it's your problem is with the FIA at this point, not with Red Bull. I think the best Mercedes could hope for is like some sort of apology from the FIA while also not overturning the result. Basically, not saying that you should have won, but that we understand why you're upset.
And that we didn't do everything in our power to prevent you from losing.
Right.
We
could have given you a better shot to not lose.
Right. Or made it
that's probably not it.
Made it a little bit more fair. But again, I don't want to say that they have judged in favor of Mercedes in some sketchy calls in the previous races, because then I feel like they'd be making up for those bad calls with current calls. I don't like the thought of that. But I agree with you. I think they need to leave out, they need to get rid of a lot of the gray areas in the regulations when it comes to moments like in today's race or last week's race or the race from Brazil. And they need to become more consistent. I think Michael Massey needs somebody in that office with him. I know he has the stewards, but as a race director, I think he's making the calls himself.
Mhm.
I don't know if they have like a vice race director, but I think somebody there to help him at least bounce ideas off of in the heat of the race would be good. And like we said in last week's discussion, full-time stewards
Yeah.
that even if they are, you know, even if they aren't like 100% efficient with these calls, at the very least they'll be consistent, you know.
Right.
I think
That was
that
actually something that they did do for today. Was
oh,
the
really?
stewards were the same from Saudi and possibly from Brazil,
Yeah.
but at the very least it was the same group of stewards for the race today as it was for last week.
Yeah. I'm okay with them not doing anything about that incident on lap 1. You know, it is the beginning of the race. You
Yeah,
barely
there's still a
got
whole
yeah,
race to
you've barely
go.
gotten into one lap. I think the stewards did a pretty decent job today, and I don't know. I think it was just Massey that made that call about the safety car at the end, right? Like that wasn't the stewards.
Yeah, no, I believe that came down to Michael Massey.
Yeah.
I didn't have an issue. The only issue that I had with the stewards themselves was just not investigating.
Yeah. At the
the
very
lap
least,
one turn one thing.
take a
Just
look
because
at it.
like they could have come up with the exact same thing that they did, but I'm like, come on, man, just take a look at it.
Yeah,
You know,
make it look like you actually cared about that
yeah,
incident.
to me, there's no point in not taking a look at it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
it doesn't hurt you anything to investigate it and take a
yeah,
look at it.
I think that's
So-
what pissed off Red Bull even more was the fact that they didn't even bother investigating it.
Yeah, that was for sure it. If
Yeah,
you know, if they looked at it and they said, yeah, you know, we think this, but they said, no, we're not even going to take a look at it.
yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah, I think we're in agreement here that the regulations need a real hard looking at next year. I
Mhm.
think full-time stewards we've agreed on. I think Michael Massey really needs a right-hand man in the office with him when incidents like today rise up. And yeah, think I think they just need to come out and accept the fact that they haven't been great with the race calling. I mean, I guess all year you could say all year they haven't been that great with it or consistent with it. You know, I don't know how much of that's going to actually affect the way that they do their job next year, but just acknowledge that, you know, there were some issues with the race calling this year. And I think at the very least, it would appease some fans, you know, that the FIA have acknowledged that they're not doing a great job with handling the races.
It's also, I'm sure it's also new for the FIA. I mean, you know, it's the age of Twitter and social media, so you know, there's a lot more scrutiny on them. I understand
every little call is going to be under the microscope
for sure. So to me, I mean, that's the kind of stuff where they're like, all right, well, if we're going to be looked at more, we have to work on our procedures.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so.
Look at some of the rules, look at some of your own procedures. I still think full-time stewards.
Yeah.
You know, guys are the stewards for every single race. You know, Derek Warwick has been, you know, one of the stewards for the last couple of races. I'm sure Derek Warwick could be available to do that during the season.
Yeah,
you know,
or at least have them like half of the season. You know, switch them off halfway through the season or something like that.
Yeah, it's just guys that are doing it, so you get that consistency week in, week out. Where oh yeah, you know what, this is similar to something that happened 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we should go and look at that. What was our ruling then? Okay, good, great.
Yeah,
you know, that's pretty much it. Just looking for consistency. That's all.
Do you think the team principal should be in the ear of Michael Massey while he's making these decisions? I know you say that you like it for entertainment purposes.
I do. But... Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Michael Massey's the race director. He's an adult. Yeah. So, you know, there has to be a mechanism because the FIA also can't catch everything. So if Christian Horner calls him up and says, Michael, could you take a look at blah, 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 this happened. Yeah. And it's something, all right, they should have that line of communication open with that. And from the race director. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with them then
like harassing him about stuff.
Droning on and on and on about it, like we've seen them do. I mean, because at some point he needs time to look at it and make his decision. And if somebody's in his ear constantly, he can't be doing his job that efficiently. You know.
I mean, maybe that's something they could look at too. You know, I mean, think about the NBA. you can get a technical foul,
Right.
your coach can get a foul that actually costs you points.
Yeah.
If he keeps going on and on about it, it's all right, Christian, you've
made your point.
We've heard enough, and you're risking a 2-second time penalty for your driver.
Yeah. I think if they want to point out something like, hey man, hey Michael, if you want to look at this incident on lap such and such, this is what happened. Okay, that's the end of it right there. Let him, you've notified him of the incident, then let him take a look at it, take his time to look at it. But to sit there and be like, well, we see it this way and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, you have that Mercedes coming in and saying, well, no, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that does anybody any good. And that just makes his job.
No, I enjoy it, though. That's going to be my.
I know you enjoy it.
Yeah, I love, hearing Toto on the radio. I don't know. I enjoy
almost like
Toto's
Arnold
voice.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
No, this is not right, Michael.
We cannot have the safety car come out now.
This is not right. This is not right.
That's the best, So I like having it. I understand why somebody might be annoyed by it. I don't necessarily like all the bitching all the time about stuff. But I think that the positive, for me at least, outweighs the negative.
Yeah. Do you think Massey's still race director come 2022?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he who are you going to replace him with? At this point, since Charlie Whiting is no longer there, Michael Massey is the most experienced FIA race director that they have. So you might as well, at this point, continue on with Michael Massey and hope that Michael Massey becomes more consistent and learns from the job experience that he got this year.
Yeah.
I think that's better than just plugging somebody else in there who is, even less experienced than Michael Massey is.
Yeah.
So, that's I think where I would be on it.
I'd like to see Ross Brawn in that position. I wonder
I thought you were about to say Nico Rosberg, and I was going to agree with you.
No.
Yeah, Nico, absolutely.
God, if you thought this year was a shit show. Yeah,
like
but
Hamilton,
I know
15-second time penalty every week.
I know Braun's got other things to do, and he probably doesn't envy that position right now. So, but yeah, I think he needs an assistant, not so much to help him make the decisions, but at least somebody. I think his assistant should be the point of contact. And then let him focus on making the calls and not
a bad idea. Just dealing with the team principals. A layer between them,
right,
Michael Massey.
Yeah,
I'm saying I would have Derek Warwick do it because, as we talked about on this podcast, I'm a Derek Warwick fan.
Yeah,
and
you mentioned him before.
Okay, well, if you want that, go down there and tell Derek Warwick that to his face, because Derek Warwick, it's a Christian Horner going over there, being like chest high on Derek Warwick,
Yeah.
But I don't know. They'll I'm sure they'll do something. They can't do nothing. I think that's what we've decided is almost anything that they do. Excuse me, God, keep yawning. Almost anything that they do will be better than doing nothing.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess that's enough bashing on the stewards.
Yeah, we've
the race
talked
director.
enough smack about the FIA for the last couple of weeks. So, as for the rest of the race, we ended up. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Hold on.
Bless you in advance. Oh, I made you not sneeze now, right?
No, I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. We ended up. Carlos Sainz got onto the podium, and the result of that, he finished ahead of Charles Leclerc in the championship this season.
Yeah, I know.
So that's
and everybody was talking about how Carlos was probably going to be one of the worst drivers transferring because the Ferrari was supposed to be such
Leclerc
a bad car.
Would be clear of him, but Sainz was excellent this season. It was really good year for him.
And I think he would have done better had he not been or had Leclerc not been prioritized in certain races. Like in Mexico, he had more pace than Leclerc. Leclerc let him by, but then they had him switch back again towards the end of the race. So I can't imagine how much better Sainz would have done if he would have been given first driver priorities in races that he was clearly faster than. faster in, I should say.
Right. Yeah, he had a really an excellent season for Carlos Sainz. I didn't rate him, but he's not really a guy that I thought of, but he's a lot better than I was giving him credit for.
Yeah, I think of all the drivers that transferred, he is far and away the best one.
Yeah, for sure.
To adapt this year, I think.
Definitely. Yuki Tsunoda finishing 4th. Best weekend of the year for Tsunoda, I think, by far.
I think so. And like I said, on merit, really good start. Got in front of Valtteri. Not that was super difficult or anything like that, but
no, not especially.
Kept him behind. He went long. I think he didn't pit when Verstappen and Hamilton pitted. I think he went a little bit while longer.
And
then,
he was on the medium, so
yeah. And then he held off the McLarens, I think. And Alonso, I think he was fighting with Alonso for a little while there as well. So yeah, really good race. That kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I know he was doing well in free practice. He was up there in the free practice times, and really good quality on mediums in Q2, which was amazing. Got through Q2 on mediums when even Gasly couldn't get through Q2 on mediums.
Right.
And then drove a heck of a race. Kudos for Gasly for making the comeback. He obviously was.
Yeah, he was down there all race. Ended up right behind Yuki. I mean, that's a good race for him.
The VSC helped him out as well. And then what the hell happened? What happened to Leclerc? Leclerc was up there with Sainz for the start of the race.
I don't know. He got caught out somewhere. I don't know if it was the safety car or if he had a tire issue or something. Yeah. He ended up behind both of the Alpines.
I think he made an extra stop.
There was after qualifying, there was somebody was talking about Tsunoda. He said, I don't understand why Tsunoda is even trying to get through Q2 on mediums, and I understand even less how he was actually able to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was funny. He had been showing pace in free practice, so maybe the team saw something in him.
I don't know exactly what happened to Leclerc because he was right in there with that group.
Yeah, he stopped once on lap 35 and then once on lap 15. Yeah, 2 pit stops. So he must have been caught out during the second VSC.
Okay, apparently. And then so Tsunoda and Gasly, then poor old Valtteri Bottas finishing 6th for Mercedes, and just kind of a nothing day for Valtteri in his last race for Mercedes, which is disappointing.
And really having to rely on Perez DNFing and pitting during the VSC to even get that high.
That's true.
Today. So I don't know, maybe his mind's already gone to Alfa Romeo or something.
I would assume so.
Yeah, because he's not this bad. He is not this bad.
He's a very good driver. He just every once in a while he has a day like this.
Yeah,
I think he has a bad start, gets stuck behind Tsunoda for a while, and then.
Yeah, I mean, his confidence is probably just shot. He's probably just accepted the fact that his time in a competitive car is over.
Which I suppose, I mean, who knows what's going to happen next season, I guess.
Yeah.
Alpha, Sauber, they had a lot of wind tunnel time. They could be very good next year. I hope they are, but who knows? Lando Norris, good race for Norris, given that I guess he was having transmission issues or something early in the race.
And then he had a slow leak puncture towards the end of the race.
Okay.
He had to pit again.
Yeah. So finishing 7th for Norris, that's started 3rd. So it doesn't sound great, but that's, better than he probably should have done given all the stuff that he, had happen in that race.
I mean, I think he would have, if he hadn't had to pit that last time, I think he would have finished on the podium in Sainz's spot. So
the 2 Alpines, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
Not a bad season for either of those guys. I think Alonso at times looked like vintage Alonso.
Yeah.
Ocon, of course, won a race and almost got on the podium again after that.
For their car, I think they drove pretty well, both of them.
Yeah, I think they seem to feel that their car for next season is going to be good.
Hey, they
I would
finished
like
ahead
to
of
see.
AlphaTauri this year, so
What was that?
they finished ahead of AlphaTauri
There
this
you go.
year. Yeah.
I would like to see them supplying another team with the engine, just because I don't know how long they would. I don't know. I guess if that's a profitable thing, supplying another team or not. Where it seems to me that would be helpful to them to have a second team to be supplying.
I mean,
maybe Haas or Williams,
or maybe Alfa Romeo, since Alfa Romeo doesn't have or Ferrari doesn't have a seat priority there anymore.
They would, if they did that, I assume that they would lose the sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I think if Alpha left Sauber, then I could see Sauber being
they're just
powered.
going back to Sauber Renault or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It'd be one of those things like if Audi bought the McLaren team and ran it as Audi, it would be an Audi Mercedes, which doesn't doesn't really work. Leclerc, and then Vettel, who Vettel won. He did end up having the most overtakes on the season.
Yeah.
So
does it really mean anything though? I mean, he's really just overtaking the.
I guess it means that they did a terrible job in qualifying.
Yeah,
that's what it means.
Race. Yeah.
But I mean, think about it, with Vettel going to the season, the thing was we didn't know about Vettel, the wheel-to-wheel racer anymore, and he had more overtakes than anybody this year.
That's true.
That's that I think is good for Seb Vettel. And Ricardo, Stroll, and Mick Schumacher, our last three finishers, all one lap down.
Yeah. Ricardo had a. Oh, Mick, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying Mick did some donuts after the race, which was nice.
Yeah.
Got through his first season. Only Haas that started today because Mazepin got COVID.
I saw a meme that, I mean, we've talked about this before, but Mazepin finished 21st in a series that only had 20 cars.
Yep. He finished that was behind what's his name?
Kubica.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I felt a little bad about that.
Yeah.
And I was mad about that because I'd sent you the picture of Mazepin's helmet,
which looked really sick,
which was gorgeous. It was gold and red. It was beautiful, and he didn't even get to use it in the race. I was like, man, what a bummer.
He's been showing some form though at the end of the season.
Better, which is damning with faint praise.
He hasn't been coming behind Schumacher in every single race. Some races actually doing better than Schumacher.
It'll be interesting to see next season when the Haas is a more competitive car and they're not just P19 and P20 every week.
Yeah.
To see if he can do anything, or if Mick is well clear of him next year and there's other cars in between them, then that would be something of an issue. I still can't find anything about what they retired Checo's car for. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Nicholas Latifi. I saw a tweet from somebody they had retweeted, and it was from like this morning, like 3 hours before the race, where somebody had tweeted that Nicholas Latifi would decide the championship.
Really?
And I'm like, they ended up being correct. Nicholas Latifi did, in fact, decide the championship, not in the way like you like.
Yeah, and it sucks because that's a Mercedes powered car too.
That's gonna be a little bit hurtful for them.
Yeah. And he's a teammate to the future Mercedes driver, George Russell.
I'm telling you what it was is Latifi did it on purpose because he wanted that Mercedes drive.
Yeah.
They hired the wrong Williams driver. That was the problem. I enjoyed Nicholas Latifi this season. I think probably in our first couple episodes, I was like, yeah, he's a guy or whatever, but he actually, I thought, did a good job in that car this season.
He's improved this season.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, people are like, well, he's out qualified by George Russell every week. And I'm like, well, okay, but a lot of you guys are saying that George Russell is going to be the next Lewis Hamilton. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
He also apparently, after out qualifying George yesterday, he Latifi got on the radio to George and said, if you can't even out-qualify me, what are you going to do against Lewis next season? Which I thought was funny.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that was joking around.
Little tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Giovinazzi had a gearbox problem. George Russell out in the beginning of the race. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Kimi Räikkönen in his last ever F1 race.
I think fittingly went out without much celebration, or
I think he was fine with it.
Yeah.
I think he was fine with the car failing. I think he was.
Yeah. If anybody
getting out of there,
if anybody would care less about DNFing in their last race, it would be Kimi Räikkönen. I think
he got out of the car. They showed him when he got out of the car after he DNF'd, I think waiting for somebody to come over and like for him to start hugging people or whatnot. And he got out like it was any other race with a DNF and just went and did Kimi stuff, which I thought was great.
Like it was FP1 or something like that.
Yeah, just did not care. I did like the message they had on the side of the car. I want to say, we'll leave you alone now.
Yeah, I saw that too. It sucks. I'm gonna miss Kimi.
Yeah,
I'm gonna miss the fact that I know whenever they do any of those like F1 montages where they ask the drivers questions about stuff, Kimi's just gonna be like, nope, and then they'll just move on to the next driver. I mean, he stated he still loves racing in F1. He just hates everything else that comes along with it. I mean, he's got two young kids that are starting to grow up now. I'm sure he wants to be home with them and his wife. I've read stories that as soon as the work is done, he rushes home right away to be with the kids.
Oh, he's just instantly out. Yeah.
And he loves that the Alfa Romeo offices are like down the road from his house, so that he doesn't.
Sauber's. Yeah.
So I'm happy for him. I'm sure he didn't make this decision lightly. And good luck to him on whatever he goes on to do next.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Great career for Kimi. World champion.
Yeah, one world champion.
27 race wins or something like that. I mean, one of the really, maybe not like a all-time great necessarily, but like the next rung down from that, I guess.
Yeah. Hell, gave Schumacher a run for his money in 2003.
And
I think it was
as fast as anybody. Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah.
Just hopped into the car and off he goes. No muss, no fuss, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Was it Roman Grosjean spoke very highly of Kimi. Just said he was always, in the season when he was paired with him, said he was polite, he was helpful. He said not a lot of extra words, but he was never rude. He was never, nothing like that. Just he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. I appreciate that about Kimi.
And Vettel loves Kimi, so that's gotta count for something.
Yes. So we'll miss Kimi. I was gonna say with a lot of guys that retire, it's like, well, we'll see him around. I was like, I don't know if we will. We might never see Kimi Räikkönen ever again.
I don't think so. Maybe at like a Monaco race or something like that once in a while, one of the big ones. But
I could see him doing maybe Race of Champions or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. Not a lot of media
Valtteri or something.
Yeah, not a lot of media stuff. You just kind of show up and race. Nobody really pays attention to it. So yeah, I could see him doing that.
Watch, we'll find out like 3 years from now. It's like, what's Kimi been doing? And he's been like dirt track racing in the southern United States and just under an assumed name. Nobody knows it.
All right.
I don't know, anything else from today that was worthy of your attention or
no? I think I'm really happy for Verstappen. I think he deserved it. I think he really earned this one, considering there were some races where the Red Bull was clearly the slower car of the two, and he still managed to pull out a win. Speaks a lot to his driving ability, considering that Lewis Hamilton is in the Mercedes, and he's probably right now the best driver in Formula One ever. If you're just going by accolades. So the fact that he won against Hamilton in a Mercedes, while Hamilton is still in his prime, speaks a lot to the work that Verstappen and the whole Red Bull team did this year. So yeah, I'm happy for him. And I know I say that I'm not a big fan of his because I'm not a big fan of his fans, but I still think he's one of the best drivers ever to grace the F1 grid.
Yeah, it's not, being on Twitter. It's
Mhm.
it's not something that's like just Hamilton fans. All hardcore fans of every driver are all insufferable.
Yeah.
I don't know why it has to be that way, but it's just like, yeah, like I was probably more early this season. I was a Max fan, and towards the end of the season, it's more like, well, not really. It's more like I would prefer that Max wins,
Yeah.
than actually like going and being a full on Max Verstappen fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually what I enjoy about being an F1 fan is, having a more far away look at it, to where if Lewis would have won today, if it would have been 180 degrees flipped and Lewis won the way that Max won and it was exciting and all that stuff, I still would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's not the result I would have wanted. I wanted Max to win because I wanted the change.
Yeah.
But
if Hamilton had won today, I would have felt like Max.
I would have felt Max got robbed a little bit.
Yeah. Whereas Max winning, I don't feel like Hamilton got robbed of this. I mean, maybe he
you
did.
Feel like Hamilton got robbed of a race.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
Max would have got robbed of an entire World Drivers' Championship.
Exactly.
It's just Max was the faster driver all season.
Mm-hmm.
He's way faster than everybody else bar Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the best version of Lewis Hamilton that we've gotten because, nobody ever made him work as hard as Max did.
Yeah, he's never been challenged. Even with Vettel at Ferrari, that wasn't much of a.
Well,
it was only for like half a season.
Even with Rosberg, the season that Rosberg beat him, Hamilton had so many DNFs. Just there were times where just the car would just break. Lewis should have won that season going away.
Yeah.
But
and Rosberg just barely won.
Right. And so this one was really the first time that another driver and another team really made Lewis and his team work.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad it was that way. The FIA, I thought, did a good job this season on the technical regulations.
Mm-hmm.
It evened everything up at the front. And then after those two teams, I think everybody, it was a lot more even throughout the rest of the pack. There were races where, Ferrari finished third in the constructors, but there was a long time where McLaren was faster. There were times where the AlphaTauri looked like the third best car, and there were times where the Alpine, not often, but times where the Alpine was the third best car. So, aside from Aston Martin, who was kind of on the outside looking in, even Williams, and Alfa Romeo had their moments where they were not competitive with the top two teams, but certainly competitive with everybody else.
Yeah.
So, it was really just Haas that, they didn't, they didn't make any bones about it. They didn't develop the car at all this year. They cut out the part of the floor to make it conform to the new rules, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
I think was it the chassis were actually, aside from the new one that Mazepin's father paid for the team to build, the chassis were carryovers from last season.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think they weren't even new cars. They were carryover chassis. So
yeah, I mean, Haas had written off the season before it even started.
God,
so yeah,
if Haas would have had their way, they probably wouldn't have even competed in the last like 4 races of the season because they just ended up spending a bunch of money on parts that they didn't feel like doing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I don't know. That's pretty much that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover with this. If you got anything else.
Yeah. No.
I think.
Do you want to do a? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we'll probably be. I think probably what we'll do maybe in maybe next week or the week after we could do more of a season recap.
Yeah, an in-depth review.
Hit some highlights. What we could do? We can each we'll do top 5 moments from the season. something
We could
like
do
that.
Yeah.
So we'll do that either next week or the week after. Keep ourselves relevant. We'll check in, I think, from time to time in the off season. As that stuff goes, we have 96 days until Bahrain testing. So
I think that's the shortest period we've had between the last race and the first race of the next season. Yeah.
Anything else new going on? Working on anything or just War Thunder?
No, I mean, now that the season's over, I'll probably have to get back into the video game videos just to get some content up. But yeah, War Thunder. I don't know. I'm kind of getting a little bit disenfranchised with it just because of all the toxicity in the chat, but that comes with any game. But yeah, I think the F1 esports series is about to end. I think this next week is the last week. So all the professional drivers will be like releasing their car setups and stuff like that.
Nice.
So yeah, I think I might once that happens, I might jump on, try out the setups, and then maybe do some videos on my own with the game. So, but yeah, other than that, that's all I got going on.
We'll have to figure out at some point the commentary thing that we were doing on that other series. I don't know that we ever figured out a good way to do that. Of course,
if you want to jump in on War Thunder too, man, we can do some videos.
I know. I've been meaning to. I have it downloaded. I've still just been looking at joysticks and throttles and stuff to possibly buy because
just use mouse and keyboard for now, man.
No, not for flight. That's terrible.
Works.
And then I also want to play Elite Dangerous, which is great with a hands-on throttle and stick.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't bought anything yet. I might just buy like a $40 joystick or something like that just to dick around because I know me. I'll spend like $250 on the joystick and then I'll spend like 45 minutes playing the game and that'll be it.
Right. So, that's what I'm saying. Just get started on the mouse and keyboard first.
I was trying that with Elite earlier today, and it's just like mouse and keyboard and Space Sim is just terrible. I do have 2,500 words written of a new episode of the Race Car Podcast. So,
what's the topic?
The Porsche 917.
Okay.
So that is 1969 through 1970, 71. Yeah, 71. And then for 72 it was banned. I think I have that right.
I was about to say I know nothing about that car, so
it's neat. It's sort of the grandfather of all the modern Porsche endurance racers. It was the first time that Porsche really specifically built a car. It was they had never won Le Mans overall. And there was a new rule set and Porsche basically decided, hey, we're just going to build a car for that rule set and we're going to win Le Mans. And they did. They won it in 70 and 71. Oddly enough, they never won it with the Le Mans spec version of the car because there was the 917K, the short tail, high downforce car, and the 917L, the long tail, low downforce car. And the L's never won Le Mans. It was the K that won Le Mans both times that they won with it, which I thought was interesting. So I have 2,500 words or so written on that because it was at the 917 and then they won Le Mans with the 936, the 956, and the 962, and the 911 GT1 and the RS Spider, and also with the 919. So started a long family lineage of winning Le Mans.
Oh, we're gonna have plenty of time before the next season starts for you to work on every single one of those cars.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing. So I'm like, well, we're almost done with Formula One, so let me start getting back into this.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, the next episode after that will be the Audi R8R and R8C Le Mans cars, because every 5th episode I do an Audi, so that keeps me interested. So I'll figure out what I'm going to do for the 11th episode though, or maybe I'll just. I'm going to do another Formula One car of some sort because I've only done the Brabham BT52 and the Jordan 191. So I might, if I can find enough on the Brawn, I might do that at some point.
That'd be a good episode.
It's difficult because
it's only
newer stuff. They still don't tell you a ton about motors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll find something to do, or maybe I'll go way back. And I'll do the Gurney Eagle or something like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But
before we sign out, I do want to
yes.
send a congratulations out to Oscar Piastri.
Oh, yeah.
He wrapped up the F2 championship, Drivers' Championship. A shame he's not going to have a seat next year, but he will be an Alpine. I don't know if he's a test driver or a reserve driver. I think he's a test driver.
Both, I think. He's
okay. Yeah.
I assume both. He'll probably, I don't know how many more years Alonso wants to do, but
yeah, I was about to say probably deserves a seat more than Guan Yu Zhou, but
Joe bring the money.
Yeah, and Alpine only have 2 seats, and I don't see either one of those 2 drivers going within the next 2 years or so.
No, I like Alonso. I hope he hangs around. I like Ocon a lot. So I don't know. It's just, hopefully somebody starts a new team and get him a seat.
I don't think Ocon's showed us what he can do quite yet. So hopefully the Alpine will be a better car next year, showcase some more of his talent. So I don't think Toto Wolff would have taken on managing him if he wasn't if he didn't have some sort of talent backing him.
No, Ocon's a talented dude. I think he'll be all right. But anyway, guys, I think that's pretty much it for today. That means it's it for the season. So I want to thank everybody that has listened to us throughout the course of the season. We know the show has been kind of a evolving thing and also very ADD, because Lord knows we don't write down any notes or anything like that. We just wing it the whole time. So thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for listening, guys. And I don't know, we'll check in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll see you guys as soon as we figure out when we're gonna do this next show. So, but yeah, thank you for staying and tuning in for the few episodes that we did do this year.
All right, guys, have a good one. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Latest.